Okay, well, hello. Let's go ahead and get started a little bit on JavaFX and the dice simulator. Now, a few things I'm going to do to make sure that I've got everything going correctly on my project. That when you implement your projects that you have to do, and when you look at your class path, you should have your JavaFX libraries ready to go. And when you look at the run, you should have your JavaFX library in there too. You're not going to be able to get any of the Java main application or anything working until you know that the other video is going to show you what you need to do, but this is part of it. And then once you have these two parts of the library added, one thing that we want to turn off is the compile and save. So adding those two libraries to the run portion, the module path, is what needs to be added. If you don't do this, it'll say runtime controls not found or runtime components not found. When you compile, you got to add your library files to the class path too. And there's one last bit that you got to do that when you go down to the run here, you see this right here. This is what sets the module path so that it can find your library. So you're gonna add this little bit of code. Now that's also in. You can copy and paste this from the instructions on OpenFX, and it'll get you going through the NetBeans portion of this. Okay, once you have that, then you will be able to add just create a normal Ant package or a normal. Just go up and create a normal new project, and I'll show you kind of what. Well, actually, you do that after you've created the project. So you're gonna just create a normal Java application project, but you don't want to add the main class. You don't need that. So let me just kind of go through these things for you, just so you can kind of see. The first time, just to get Java or JavaFX activated, you'll do that. But for this one, we're just going to go Java application, next. Then we give it a name. But here, I want to uncheck create main class. And then once that pops up, then you can go over here and right-click and say new. And you could say JavaFX main class. And then once you add that JavaFX main class, which is this guy right here, you go into your project properties. And you need to make sure that your libraries are added, your run is set, and the module path is set. And you'll be ready to roll from those other resources that are available to you. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and just do a dry run of this, and we've got something. We've got something that's not really doing much of anything other than it looks like hello world printing. So we're going to use this as a template to begin, and what we're doing is the dice program, and the first thing that we're going to want to implement is an image. Now your book has that information, and so what I want to do is I'm going to do a little rolling around in here. This is just the main the FX main auto generated from NetBeans. Once you got all your dependencies going. Welcome back. We're going to go ahead and get into the dice here. The dice images are located in your zip source code folder of your first module. If you go down to images, you'll see here that we've got dice. So we're going to go ahead and just grab I don't know, die one. Let's just look at it and see if it's worthwhile. Okay, die one. Let's grab these guys right here. And we just want to get one one dice showing in an image onto the JavaFX, and then we're going to play with it, move it around, try to make it show different images, real time, and so forth. So let's go ahead and grab these, and we're going to put these in our project folder. I've created a project folder for this particular one called Dice right here, and I'm going to go ahead and put those right in with the Java files. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right in there so that we don't have to tell it where to go look when our Java file opens up that particular guy. Now that I've got the dice, we are ready to write some code, and there's example code for doing an image in your book. First, we're going to do a little hack and slash, and then we'll implement the actual image being drawn in JavaFX. So let's begin with just clearing things out a little bit. And by the way, this was just when I built the empty project. I just went to over here and I said new file, and I said new FX main, and this is what was generated when it came up. You can't do it through, I mean, you can do it once you've created the Ant project. You can go to the new file and get that JavaFX main class like so, but that's what was generated here. So I'm going to actually take some of this out. Actually, you know what? I kind of like the button, even though it's kind of stupidly embedded in there, but that's fine. Yeah. Let's go ahead and just add the image part to it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get into the code portion of it, and I'll be right back once I get ready to begin. We're going to go ahead and get going on that code here, but before we start writing the code, I want to talk a little bit about abstraction and kind of why abstract classes and dynamic binding is so important for graphical user interfaces. So essentially, back in the bad old days, our first kind of implementation of graphical user interfaces, and I'm not talking about games graphics, that's different. I'm talking about like the form type graphics, text boxes, buttons, check boxes, that sort of thing. The first kind of main implementation for other than Visual Basic was called Microsoft Foundation classes, MFC 32, and that was the first kind of way. And what you would have to do is you would have your normal window that you would create, but the thing is you actually had to, for like your text boxes, everything like that, you had to draw those on your own and actually create the text boxes for the application, which, I mean, it's kind of stupid because every time you want a window application and you have to create all the library files for a text box and even write the code to put the little blinking cursor there to get information from it is ridiculous. So all the GUI is a drawn boxes, just drawn boxes on the screen, drawing a square, and there was a lot of problems with that. And then we had Visual Basic. Visual Basic came in and did the same sort of thing. But the problem is it made it so easy, it wasn't powerful. So the first implementation, Microsoft Foundation or MFC, Win32, was too difficult. Visual Basic was very easy, but not powerful enough. So out comes out Java, and C#. And they say, okay, let's just make everything an object, and when somebody wants to have access to this form or this scene or stage, they inherit it. So in the case of Java, you're inheriting application, which represents this guy right here. Now here's the biggest thing, some of the biggest problems that we have when we are writing this type of code for somebody to use is how do we give them those special things that they need to allow it to have a little bit more power and robust and be more robust. Visual Basic couldn't cut it. MFC was too difficult. MFC or Windows 32 was too difficult. Java and C# solved that problem with dynamic binding and kind of the way the whole thing is structured. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm building something and I need it to draw on the screen some circles or squares. Well, every time I minimize that window and maximize that window, this window is redrawn. But it's redrawn at the level of code that they created it. So when that window gets redrawn, it's redrawn in the application sets. We don't know when that window gets redrawn unless we do something. So every time I move that window, it needs to be redrawn. So that means if I'm doing my own drawing inside, every time that window moves and is redrawn, I need to know when that happens so that I can draw my little square in here, because the user just minimized the window and maximized it, and my square needs to be there because I'm drawing squares. So what that means is the application is calling some kind of draw or render function. So some kind of draw or render function, and then that's what actually is doing the drawing of the square, the white squares, everything. That's your draw or render function that's happening at the application level. Now, how would you know when the application calls that draw or render function so that you know when to do your own little drawing in here and do your little squares yourself? And that is very simple, because the draw or render function is a virtual function, or it's abstract. So that means when they call application and they call draw or render at the application, I'm talking about the person that actually wrote the application. When the draw is called, we need to override that draw function. We would override it in our own code when we extend application, override that draw function so that when it's called at the application level, it calls our function that we overloaded. So it calls out to the function that we overloaded. Then it's our business to say, okay, super, go ahead and draw. That's what I want you to do. And so you override that draw, and so the application calls the draw function, and instead yours is called. Then you need to do the responsibilities of calling the base class draw functions, like everything else that needs to happen, along with your little squares that you're adding to draw squares. And that's how all the mechanism is done, is because you need to know when specific things happen in the application so that you can have awareness and take control over those behaviors. And so with abstract classes, dynamic binding, virtual functions, all that stuff, that allows you to create a whole library of very complex and robust objects that somebody can literally just own. And that's just by overriding functions so that you can take upon or actually have knowledge of the code that's working on behind the scenes and implement your own examples. So that's kind of the main reason for the impetus for how things work behind the scenes. Now let's go ahead and do some image processing. And I'm going to, one thing that we need first is an image view. So we're going to go ahead and create an image view. And then in the image view, we're going to put an image. We're going to actually need to instantiate several images. So let's start with a little bit of a hack and slash on some things. This one, I don't need to do anything here. What I do want to do is I want to add an image view object. So let's go ahead and do it up here. And then what we want is we're going to actually add that to the GUI. And the image view, we're going to instantiate with a default image. Which is going to be for the dice 1. So we're going to actually have to create a die called die 1. And I'm going to, there we go. I'm going to zoom in on that for you. Okay, so we got our image view for for our die. Now we need to create an image. I bet you we have an include for our image view. We probably can just pop on it right here and it'll add it for us. There we go. I like that. Cool. And image die 1 equals new image, and you just pass in the location for it, which since we put it in the directory, it's just going to be die1 dot die1.bmp. Did I put it over in the right folder? We should have these guys in the project folder. I'm just going to double check. We want them in with the source. Okay, they're in there. Okay, so I'm just going to say die 1. Okay, and I'm going to stop because I just want to know if this works. That's all I care about right now. And I probably need to import that too. No, I don't want to implement all abstract methods. I didn't want to do that. No, no, no. Okay. All right. Let's go back to your book and see if we're doing this right. I think I did the wrong import on this image. Yeah, it shouldn't be java.awt image. We want it to be a JavaFX image. So these, we can't really allow them to automatically do things. So that is a problem. So it's going to be a JavaFX.scene image. Okay. And that's a capital I. Oh, you know what? These guys are ridiculous with some of this stuff. This is just ridiculous. It's .image.image. .lowercase image. .uppercase image. Okay. Now, you know, if I was really, having issues with Java, because I like Java, but right now I would have some words with Java over that one. or JavaFX, actually. That one's a good one. Okay, so our image is working fine. Our image view is not being used. So I just want to show the image view, and then we're going to load in the rest of our die. So let's go ahead and load up and show our image view. And we can add the image view And I'm looking, kind of gandering at your book here on page 832 around there. But we need to find the code where we actually add the image view to the GUI. I am going to get that code written out, and we will come back and we'll go through it. Okay, we have an image showing on the screen. What I did from the example of MainFX template, I created an image, and make sure you put die1.bmp and make sure you put it in with your .java files so it can load it up. Once it loads up, it puts that die1.bmp into the image view. Then when the stage is, or where the scene is set, I take that image view and I add it to the stack pane that the button's already in, that is being added to the scene. And running it, we have a nice little image showing up there. Yes, it's over our button, that's fine. You know, that's the beginning. What I would do is I would probably, you know, the next thing is to probably get a vertical box or a horizontal box going and use that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the next step, and that is getting these separated and then being able to roll the dice. I want to be able to roll the dice with the click of a button. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. And I'm going to add the ability to click the button and get them separated. So we've got an image drawing. Let's go ahead and add a horizontal, a vertical box to put that in there so that we have our button separated from the dice. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write the code to get that done, and then we'll start rolling the dice when we can for the button click. And we'll examine it. Okay, we have liftoff. What I did is I added a vertical box to my image and image view. So now the image is inside of an image view, which is inside of a vertical box, which is inside of a stat panel, which is inside of the scene, which the scene will be shown to the monitor. Okay, so when I run this, I get this. So the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to click this button, and I want to be able to change the image in there. So that's kind of where we're headed next, and I will be coming back when we get to that point to examine the code. So the first thing is we've already identified that the button click changes. Now I'm going to, we may even have some fun with it here in a little bit, but I'm going to come back after I get it actually, the image is actually changing when you click on that button for the roll of the dice. Okay, now there's obviously other ways of doing this, but I've got you kind of a starter to get you beginning on your dice program, and you're going to have several components of it. Here's an example of the components of your dice program. You're going to have the ability to roll dice, and part of that is being able to change the image on your image view. So first thing I do is on the start, create a button, create an image, create image view, set the image view width and height, set the text of the button. I add the event to the button. Now I have an image and image view. Make sure that you type in your initial image first, like so, and then you would have your ability to load that particular file up correctly. Make sure that you type those in right, guys. That'll be an error that'll hit you. And then I have a virtual box that I add the image view to and the button. I set up a scene with a size. I add the virtual box to it, and then I show the scene. And if you'll see here that we have the ability to hit that and change the dice. So what I would do now is you can actually add a timer or something, or a counter. And what I would do is I would add an int counter. I would set it at 0. And this would have to be actually up above, because you would need that to be a global, because you're going to be adding that counter, adding to that counter every time you hit the button, because we're going to use the counter to switch our files. So now what I can do is I can I can build the name with a loop, or I could well, you know, I could use an array, but I think we could load them up by building the name of the image to load. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and use a string and develop a string just to load different values up, or different types of die. So that string is always going to be equal to, it's going to be the file to load, the file to load, FTL, and what we'll do is we'll start it out at die equals die. And then what we're going to want is we're going to want to add that to counter. And then we add the .bmp. And then what you'll do is every time counter hits, it'll go up by 1, and you could load up the different die here with that FTL variable that will be built. So I'm not for sure this is going to work, because we're probably going to have a conversion that we have to do there. But then we want counter to increase by 1, but if counter, but we want to throttle counter. We want it to never be more than 1 to 6. So we actually want to start off counter at 1, and then if counter gets above, if counter goes above the 6 dice that we have, if it's greater than 6, then we're going to want to set counter equal to 0. Okay, so let's just see if this works, and then we've got something that you can kind of take and run with. And of course, you know, there's other ways of doing this. You guys may find a better way of doing it than me. But this is the line of code I'm interested in right here, is this counter. I'm wondering if it'll build that string correctly without a conversion. Oh yeah, no, Java, that's why I call it a super language, right along with C# and a little bit on the JavaScript side, but yeah, it did it. So let's go ahead and hit continue, go off of the debug, and test this out. Okay, so we got, well, the first one is already started, so we should actually probably, that counter we need to start to, because it does that double hit there. There. Okay, so that should have incremented counter by 1. So we started counter off at 1. Okay, so I got a fence post error, so let's just go ahead and do 0 here, and that might fix it. Oh yeah, because it starts at 1. So I should start this at 2. Let's see if that fixes it. There, there, there. Starting over. Oh, that's fine. It died. That's all right. That should go back to 1. That's where that one's at. Okay, that's that error. Okay, are we actually flipping through them all? Oh, yeah, I got my debugger going. Turn off, go. Continue on, let me test you. Yay! Yay, 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 yay. Okay, so now what you can do is you can actually make this into an animation where you can add a timer, and if you click the button, you can run the timer and just animate the dice rolling kind of like that, if you wanted to. That's sometimes what I do with this sort of thing. But you've got a running example of rolling some dice. Okay, guys. The file stuff in here, like the file input stuff you have that's in here, you don't actually really need that. But I'm just going to do a quick, show you guys everything. And this one I'm actually going to probably post. So you'll have this available for you guys to download. Okay, thank you. Bye.